The Lounge, proudly brought to you by Johnny Walker. Keep walking.
Good evening, welcome to The Lounge. My name is Sakyi-Addo, and The Lounge comes to you from the Equator Bar at La Palm Royal Beach Hotel in Accra, and it's brought to you by Johnny Walker. Keep walking. On Monday, May 29th, a young army captain was killed in the most cruel manner by a mob at Denkyira Diaso. Captain Adam Mahama was killed in a fashion that even rabid, mad stray dogs would decline participation. Captain Mahama was not himself some callous murderer or vile criminal deserving of his fate. He wasn't on some criminal or private deviant frolic. He was on a national duty to protect and serve. And so Ghana is traumatized and mourns with his family. But there's a broader question. We're told that Ghanaians are good people, tolerant people, welcoming and hospitable, even God-fearing and peace-loving. We are nice. Is this true? Or is it a tourism myth, a hollow, meaningless advertising tagline employed to lure one another and strangers into a carefully knit snare? Because mind you, Captain Mahama's killing doesn't sit in isolation. It's just one of many acts, such acts, in which human life is desecrated. If there's any luck, they may get thrown into the jokes column of the newspapers. So are we Ghanaians slowly taking leave of our senses? Are we losing our humanity? Whatever happened to our communalism? Have we bid farewell to our soul? I hope that my guests have some answers. Professor Kenatifa is a criminologist, lawyer, and also executive secretary of the National Identification Authority, which may be critical for identifying criminals in our country. And Ms. Kathleen Addy is deputy chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, or NCCE. I guess their responsibility is pretty obvious from their name. They join me on The Lounge tonight. Ken, thank you so much for joining us. What are you drinking apart from water? What can we?
I am drinking water, Kweku.
And you're happy with that?
I am happy.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. So, were you shocked by the killing and the manner of killing of Captain Mahama?
Truthfully, no. I wasn't shocked. I was hurt. I was disappointed in us as a people, but I wasn't shocked in the least, not by the fact of his death, the manner of his killing, where he was killed, or the circumstances of it. Nothing about the story is new. The only new thing is the personality, the person who was a victim of the most heinous crime. You see,
because he was a soldier on duty.
He was a soldier on duty. Ghanaians have killed soldiers on duty many, many times. Our history is replete with examples of killing of people of all persuasions on the flimsiest of excuses. As long as there is a strong dose of suspicion, a good number of motivated offenders, and of course, absence of capable guardianship, capable defenders. And the one most important ingredient for the commission of this kind of crime, extreme vulnerability. So whether it is an old woman who is suspected to be a witch and is lynched, or an armed robber who is outpaced when he's trying to escape and he's captured and he's beaten up,
or an alleged
armed robber, or in this case, a very fine soldier on duty, keeping fit, or whatever the truth of the circumstances were, but who, from all the accounts, has a gentle, caring persona, and as I've been told, would be the last person to hurt a fly. That personality makes him vulnerable in the context of the society that had just, allegedly we are told, been a victim to a spate of armed robberies, that community, and being on high alert. And a soldier with a gun who respects the canons of his profession, that he will be circumspect and will not resort to the use of that deadly weapon on him, that he would engage in pleading, he would engage in negotiating, peace, trying to get them to understand, engaging in persuasion, which is a normal thing to do in situations like that, and yet was unsuccessful because of a callous mob that was hell-bent on not listening to reason, and very characteristically Ghanaian, not being patient to build a case on evidence, but being hurried to depend on suspicion.
So why have people reacted in the manner in which they have? Why have we reacted?
We have reacted
with outrage.
Another reason why I wasn't shocked is that, at least for my part, since 1998 when I returned to this country from Canada, I have been complaining about mob justice, instant justice by parents against children, teachers against pupils, mobs against suspected criminals, and all manner of things. And I have been so often challenged by very well educated people, decent people who think of themselves as decent, saying, Ken, but I don't agree with you. If we catch somebody we suspect to be an armed robber, or who is in my yard lurking in the night, I must shoot him, we must kill him. And you over the years, we have not been able to cultivate a small crop of defenders of civil liberties in this country that say that people can get it wrong. And especially when you believe you have all the evidence of the person's criminality, that is all the more reason why you should take him to the police and let the law take its course. Then the refrain is that, well, the police are corrupt, they will let him go. The lawyers are corrupt, they will defend him. The judges are corrupt, they will let him go. And therefore, we don't have confidence in the criminal justice system and the administration of justice. But Kweku, this has an ancient and long pedigree in our history as a people. We've been lynching people from time immemorial. There were circumstances where people were lynched following a judicial process in traditional societies because that was the prescribed punishment. But at some point in our evolution, this primordial sentiment, this almost natural tendency to avenge and to avenge instantaneously has become institutionalized. If you say Julo in Accra, you will get an army of ready young men and women who will pounce on the victim.
Okay, how different are we from other peoples?
We are not different from other peoples. We have cultivated for ourselves a very positive, super benevolent image of Ghanaians being good and better than our neighbors next door or 2 doors away. We have somehow succeeded in deceiving ourselves that we are the best people in the world. Every Ghanaian thinks of himself as decent and law-abiding, and yet the reality is that we are among the most lawless nations in the world. The degree of lawlessness in this country baffles the mind of the average visitor to this country. Our open sewage, our gutters, the garbage in our country is the most glaring announcement of our indiscipline, our penchant for lawlessness. And of course, the second greatest marker of our identity as a lawless people and not good people is the way we treat each other on our highways. We drive with careless abandon without regard for other people. Our cities are choked not just with filth, but with vehicles at intersections that allow us to waste so much fuel.
But if our laws worked, if the police, some would argue, if the police did their job, or people believed that the police were doing their job, the judicial system would take care of their concerns and deal and give them justice, just as other peoples would behave as decent people should. We would too.
Absolutely.
I mean, if people trusted that if they arrested a suspect and they drove them politely to the police station, that they would get justice, then they would do so, wouldn't
Absolutely.
they?
So that is the point I'm making. We're saying the same thing. What I'm saying is that the tendency or the desire to want to avenge is innate, it's natural. But society constructs rules, we make laws, we establish institutions to regulate the animalistic instincts in all of us. And when we allow those societal arrangements to appropriately regulate those instincts and tendencies, then we have a well-ordered society. Mm-hmm. And so you don't rape the woman, you try to talk her into agreeing with you. You don't steal the fruit, you ask or you pay for it, you as a neighbor. You do all those things because society, that doing so makes social life possible, dependability, that there is a taking for grantedness, that when I get to the red light and I stop, the other vehicle from the other direction will go because they have green. So the light must work. And I must respect yellow means get ready to stop, not hurry through. And if I obey that, there will be a well-ordered society. But if I know that I have an appointment at time 10 o'clock, that I will set off in time to be there about 10 minutes or 5 minutes before. If we can program ourselves that we respect the laws, then we will be like all those people in all those other countries that we so much admire, that we call arbitrary.
Because it's like a machine. Every part must work.
Exactly.
If one part doesn't, it will impede the output of the other part, and in the end, the entire machine, the system, will fail. So is that what we're seeing?
That is what we are seeing.
So part of it, so is it that, so we're talking about our character, our nature, so to speak. Is it our nature that is disabling the system?
Or our nature?
Or is it our nature? Or is it the system that is disabling our nature?
It is the nature as in the biological things, the primordial tendencies in us. We moved from the cave age a long time ago physically, but mentally and attitudinally, some of us behave in this concrete jungle of Accra and Kumasi and Takoradi as if we are in the forest. So we don't respect rules. But there is another part. The other part is what I was alluding to earlier, which is that because of our fear of crime, in the case of this conversation, because of the pervasive fear of violent crime, and because of the nature of the crime and its impact on us, especially armed robbery and rapes, Ghanaian society has come to the conclusion, a consensus, that we will not generally respect the rights of persons who are overpowered when they are alleged to have committed crimes. And then all the other justifications, they are techniques of neutralization. They are methods and mental processes we go through to temporarily make us feel less guilty or not feel guilty in order that we can do the things we want to do. So we can appeal to a higher loyalty. Satan made me do it.
Right.
Or God said I should have sex with the small girl. Or any of those things. Or she's not even a victim. In fact, she's over 18. Or she's over 16. Those kinds of things. We deny injury. We deny victimhood. We deny responsibility. Corned beef sandwich made me do it. Anything, We say silly things. We deny responsibility. And we get away with it. Because we've gotten away with it so much so for so long. When was the last time, Kweku, you ever heard that somebody who participated in mob action has been prosecuted and convicted? Not the Atronia incident, when that young man who was carrying the remains of his in-law was so callously killed.
Yes.
I remember Dr. Beckley here in Laboni. We attacked, we believed that he was keeping all kinds of things, and a mob went there.
People have been lynched on suspicion of being the cause of the size, the diminishing size of their genitals.
I personally came dangerously close to being lynched right in front of Kaneshi police station in 2003. I just returned from New York. Somebody had given me a parcel to pass on to another person at the Kaneshi market. As I was passing in front of the police station, all I heard was one, and all of a sudden, I was surrounded. People they were already prepared, holding stones and sticks. And the policewoman was sitting by, idly watching the spectacle that was just about to unfold.
And your offense, your supposed offense was? My
supposed offense was that I looked like someone short, and I looked like someone who was supposed to have fleeced someone in a taxi scale scam. He had bought a taxi and paid for a little bit and bolted, and they had made a report at the police station, and they were watching and then lo and behold, I passed. The context, the circumstances, these kinds of crimes, the mob action, are also what in criminology we call situated interactions. These are interactions that occur given the context. Anyone, and because we have not contained this crime, anyone, anywhere in this country, in fact, everyone, everywhere in this country, is a potential victim to mob action. Because all you need to possess is vulnerability. Get lost in the wrong place. Lack the ability to articulate. And in my case, on that occasion, when I was faced with this mob, I just commanded. I don't know where I got the inner strength. I will make an attribution to God. But I had the confidence and the strength to command the policewoman and say, "Officer, come!" And I don't know whether it was the authority in my voice, but she came close. And as she came close, and I said, "I am so and so, with Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice." This is National Reconciliation Days, 2003. And then she woke up, and the police,
This is at the time you were the executive secretary of the National Reconciliation Commission.
And then I think there was something about the way I spoke which my assailants distinguished from the way perhaps their suspected criminal spoke. Something about me made them pause for a while.
So assuming you were not the executive secretary and you didn't speak, you couldn't articulate.
And there wasn't a policewoman who felt commanded. Right. So I could there, but for the grace of God, go I. And that's why I understand what went on in the mind of this person. I have been, all my life, I've said I'll never carry a gun. I've been in circumstances where if I had a gun and I was a trained marksman and all of that, perhaps I would have had recourse to it. This man had a gun. His training as a soldier told him, don't make use of it, even though the law says you have every right to
use it in self-defense,
any degree of force to defend your life and property. This man sacrificed his life. And I don't mean he chose to. I just mean that he elected not to avenge those people, not to aggress on them, but rather to flee, to escape, preserve his life, and then deal with it, I presume, through the regular rigors of the rule of law. Unfortunately, that did not materialize.
We've been joined by Ms. Kathleen Addy, Deputy Chair of the National Commission on Civic Education. Kathleen, thanks for joining us. What's your take? Are we losing our soul?
Well, it's easy to assume that, given all that is going on. Of course, mediated by social media, it's now in your face. I'm not sure if there's more of this now, or it's just more reporting and more access to information, and the fact that incidents, positive and negative, can almost get to everyone almost in real time. So I think the social media angle kind of makes people feel that there's more of it going on, but we have no way of gauging that yet, as far as I'm concerned. But to the extent that that is the perception, it's a real enough problem to deal with, because people will act based on the perceptions that they have. So yes, it does look like we've lost our soul, but I don't think that we are at the point of total chaos or total anarchy just yet. I feel like, to be honest, I think the law enforcement angle is I'm very particular about that. I feel that
is a strong
I think it is a strong motivation. If people know they can get away with it, it's easier for them to do it. As Doc said, how many times you hear of the mob or anyone in the mob, getting their day in court and getting the just punishment that they should receive for doing what they did? I have never heard that anybody has gone. You hear at the point where the police say, we are investigating, and nobody knows what happens after that. The media lose interest, and we all forget. But there's never that situation where the media even goes back and says, oh, you remember this case, the man is now in jail, or the lady is now here, so that at the very minimum, it would deter others from, from going down the same route.
And
or
even
it would give them pause.
And even in the same week that this happened, a woman was stoned to death.
Yes.
On suspicion of witchcraft.
Yes.
And in many of these instances, these claims of witchcraft, most of the time, it's a woman. It's elderly, she's poor, vulnerable,
yes.
She's probably losing her memory, or going through what do you call it, if they are younger, probably going through the motions and all the attributes that are characteristics of what's the expression?
Teenagers who are going through.
No, not teenagers. When you're in your 40s.
You mean menopause?
Oh, menopause. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, who are going through menopause. And they get branded and get treated in the most vile way, get killed.
Yes.
I mean, one of the worst examples, and I keep talking about it, a 74-year-old woman. This wasn't in a forest area. This was in Tema, who was looking for her son, lost her way, found herself in somebody's house. Person comes from work, decides she's a witch, calls her pastor, who confirms it. They douse her in petrol and set her alight.
It's unreal. It's really unbelievable.
Now, I'm interested in the part that religion, pastors play in this, and this devil that to whom we outsource responsibility for all our failings.
Yes. Well, I definitely think that it's a problem. I don't know when the religion got to this point, but we are at the point where most people don't do anything without consulting their pastor. So somebody asked me, so who is your pastor? I was on a program with a pastor, And he said, you sound very rebellious. Who is your pastor? I said, I don't have a pastor. He said, didn't you grow up in Ghana? I said, I grew up here, all right. But how can you not have a pastor? You know, so we really are, we are at the point where, you know, the pastors actually have a lot of power and influence over people, over what they do, over what they say, over how they think. And I think that it could be influence. Yes, it could be an opportunity. Yes, it could be an opportunity if we calibrate it right. Because really, truly, I always say that everything has to be taught. If you are going to be patriotic, it has to be taught. If you are going to be a good citizen, it has to be taught. If you are going to be a responsible person, it has to be taught. And there's been a vacuum in an authority that, you know, channels these kinds of messages to people, and the church has taken up that place. Now, if we could work through them, for instance, it would be very easy to get to people to, you know, sort of do a slight mind adjustment to be able to see things differently.
Because the church and yes, the mosques and the religious institutions
have that influence. They are influential. Absolutely. Very, very
the
influential.
Followers believe
very powerful.
The leaders of the
yes,
church and
yes,
the mosque say.
There is no denying at all. Very powerful, very influential, and not to be messed with, actually. And so you want a situation where, ideally, I would have loved that it's a power that could be used for good, for instance. But with a lot of religious leaders, you find that what they do is they consolidate the power onto themselves and decide to run people's lives in ways that benefit them personally. So you will be asked to...
the motivation is not entirely noble.
Yes. I still want to, you know, to speak a bit about Madam, what's her name, Kina, the old lady who was stoned to death.
Right.
Stoned to death. This was unacceptable even in biblical times. And we have moved past 2,000 years. And it's something that is still happening. I think it's a shameful act that, you know, we all should bow our heads in shame that can happen. And that is
this same week.
Yes, this same week. The class and elite elements come in there because obviously her situation did not get the attention that the captain situation.
And it may well have been, it could have been that had this subject, this topic, not consumed us, hers might have found its place on page 37.
Yes, under the carpet, yes.
You know, among the debris with some little adverts and so on.
Absolutely. But this is a country where we accept that elderly women mostly, who are poor and vulnerable, can be kept in a camp outside of society because they are witches. I mean, if you can accept that, it's just a few quick steps.
Because we claim,
yes,
or they claim they are witches.
Yes, because the communities claim they are witches. It's almost as if you are past your prime, you've passed the childbearing age, you've passed the age where maybe men...
You've passed your sell-by date.
Yes, you've passed yourself. So it's become an avenue for actually getting rid of human beings who really, at that age, should be nurtured by society. And
after
so
they've cared for us,
yes,
and it's time for us to care for them,
then we find the excuse,
throw them away,
yes,
into
and
a bin.
brand them, yes. And once they are branded as witches, actually they are fair game. If people go into the camp and attack them, the community sees it as fair game because witches don't have any good rep. If you are branded a witch, it's a bad thing. It means you hurt people. So if you hurt people, people can defend themselves. People can hurt you back freely, you know. So
I mean, doesn't it boggle your minds that they can't escape from there, even though they are witches?
They are not allowed to escape.
Well, you're a witch. You have supernatural powers. You know, why are you still there?
Yes.
I mean, don't we ask this?
The community. What I wonder if they know. You know, there's a hidden joke
in the middle of the night
if they actually know that these people are just a nuisance to us, but we are all happy to pretend that we think that they are witches. I don't know if that's the game, or if there's a genuine belief. If there's a genuine belief that actually this little old lady is a woman who can hurt me, a grown man. I'm not so sure about that.
The hurt has to be put in context, but. Can I just make one quick comment?
Yes.
The role of religion and the pastors who are so influential. Just want to make one quick comment. It's a pastoral industry. It is an industry just like Gary processing and any of these things. This one just happens to have a far more nobler spiritual dimension. And because spirituality is a genuine, intimate human need, very strong human need, just like the need for food, this will continue to be important. But its importance is greater in societies where the levels of material well-being are low. And I'm not saying that if we become very wealthy, we should lose our religiosity. But we will definitely lose the stranglehold of half-baked, illiterate pastors, some of whom have no spiritual calling, but see endless opportunities to exploit the gullible. And that's what they do. And they feed into all this rubbish, excuse my French, of making people believe that you're not prospering in life, you're not passing your exam, you're not doing well, is your current station in life is the result of somebody's spiritual actions on you. Surely, I'm Vice Chair of ActionAid Ghana, and ActionAid Ghana has been involved in the North for a very long time in processes of getting so-called witches from the camps, many of them, and the camps, and getting them into safety. The Presbyterian Go Home Project had been going on with Haji Halima Mahama since 1996-98, and the Presbyterian Church and all of the NGOs in the North. They've been doing this for a long time. But you see, I made the point earlier. It is vulnerability. These are a class of persons whose circumstances do not inspire pity, because as a collective, we like to blame, and we condemn those like me who condemn those who perpetrate it. They revert, in criminology we call it condemnation of the condemners. It's a technique of neutralization. We neutralize the guilt we feel for killing this poor old woman, and young men who have not really worked hard, who have not shown any industry, people who expect manna to fall from the heavens, would quickly pounce on their grandmas or sisters and all of that, and do violence to them. And the violence that is being punished, avenged, the hate that she talks about, is not physical hate. And so you can claim it. You cannot prove it. You are not subjected to proof. So you just go. And it is a serious matter. Kweku, exactly 10 years ago, 2 days, on the 30th of May, at the Coconut Grove Regency Hotel in Accra, the then Ministry of National Security had a one-day consultative forum with the judiciary. Chief Justice Georgina Wood had then been just appointed, and the police, the security establishment, they were all there. Parliament had, and they came up with fine ideas. But year after year, virtually every month in this country, somebody gets lynched or somebody gets attacked by a mob, and we do not give it the publicity this one has fortunately had, because they were vulnerable people. This man was a vulnerable person of distinction. His character, his profession, the reason he was there. This is not somebody
There's an institution
behind him. And perhaps his death should provide all of us as a people the platform for bringing about the change. This must be the beginning of the end. And on 22nd November, I believe, 2006, Honorable Alfred Agbesi, MP then for, I think, Chairman, made a passionate plea in Parliament. And several parliamentarians joined him in making statements about the dangers that mob injustice pose to this country and to our collective national security. That was 2006. 11 years on, nothing has changed. In my book on fighting armed robbery in Ghana, there's a chapter on societal responses to armed robbery. And I've documented case after case, almost on a monthly basis, of lynchings and bodies found everywhere and all of that. And even today, it is only because of the way the soldiers have descended and the whole nation has descended and the president's insistence and the suspension of the DC who has made some adverse comments about this, that everybody is afraid. Yeah. And so for the next week or two, nobody will get lynched in Ghana. But can assure you, people may be shot because that will not be a mob action because the focus is on mob. But my focus is not just on mob because when it, but on instant injustice. Because when it comes to mob, there is a whole different mob psychology that comes to play, whether it's in the stadium or it's on the the footpath to the river, when people clash and one has a crowd behind him or her and a mob appears. The crowd psychology is different. It takes on a dynamic life of its own that is sometimes a little difficult to contain, but we need to deal with this as a perennial problem.
I've got a question here from my friend Kofi Opariado. Says, is it fair for me to say that galamsey, lynching, arbitrary retribution by state actors are all key markers of a failed state or a state without strong institutions to enforce civil behavior and act as guarantors of due process?
I would not say failed states just yet.
Failing?
No, I wouldn't even say failing. I think that the institutions are weak. I mentioned right from the onset that I feel strongly that the law and order component, if addressed, will go a long way to curbing some of these. I would not say failed or failing, but what I would say though is that there is definitely the threat. Because if you think of Liberia and Sierra Leone, actually galamsey played a big role in how those conflicts came about. The warlords were all people who diamond warlords.
Yeah, the blood diamond.
Yes, they were people who were in remote communities mining, expanding their territories clashing with other warlords' territories, using resources from the activities to fortify themselves in terms of ammunition, and getting ammunition that was more sophisticated than the state.
For ordinary people who feel alienated, who feel cheated by the elite, the political class, white-collar criminals, bilking the state of millions and getting away with it. Don't the elite have some responsibility to the poor guy that jumps the wall, the fence to go steal something so he can get by?
That's what collective security is about. If we improve the scale of well-being, and by we, I mean those of us charged with the governance of the state in all the different spheres, economic, political, administrative, whatever. If we shirk our responsibilities, then we contribute to the creation of that large army of young men and women, but mostly men, because violent crime is largely a young man's game. We cultivate an army of young men who are well motivated to offend. And who
they're
are
angry
not,
all the time.
Yes, and who are not easily
they're angry at us.
deterred. Yes. They are angry and they are envious and they are motivated, and they lack adequate analytical tools because we did not educate them well.
Right, because we stole from them.
Exactly. And we did not do well in preventing them from dropping out of schools. We did not do well in enabling them to go to college. So instead of being in college, a lot of them are living in uncompleted houses, selling all kinds of things and getting into trouble. Go to our jails. A lot of otherwise young, good-minded,
healthy,
purpose. So in terms of the solution,
and falling victim to crooked pastors.
Exactly.
Or other negative influences.
Or other negative influences and juju men and so on and so
all
forth.
the other things.
Yeah,
Sakyi and the rest.
All right.
And
yeah.
so solutions.
So
The NCC is one of the most powerful institutions in this country on paper. It is a powerful
on paper.
On paper.
Emphasis.
It has to be awakened with adequate resources and solid leadership. The NCC, I'm happy to hear what she just told us about the synergies that they are building, the networking with other people who are not their staff, getting into schools. That's what Civitas is all about. Expanding the scale of civic education. You and I were doing this.
We first met
1998.
in the Civitas Forum.
I see.
Senegal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's important. You talk about ordinary people. In Palermo, Sicily, when the La Costa Nostra, when the mafia had taken over the country, and judges were being killed while they sat in judgment, and everybody was frightened. It was the ordinary women of Palermo who came out in their numbers, started hanging white ribbons and bed sheets on their balconies, declaring peace and demanding action by their men and the wider collective. And by and by, they changed Palermo, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. They changed Sicily into a hospitable tourist environment, a welcoming environment. And people now, you know, go there in their numbers. That is what I think the president talked about at his at the Independence Day. Citizenship involves participation, not spectatorship. And the participation includes participating in challenging systems that are not working. And I'm happy the NCC is waking up to its responsibilities. Shraj is another one. As NCC wakes up to its duty to expand the scale of lawfulness, that is to increase public confidence in and desire to abide by the laws of this country, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice must also invigorate its fight, its struggles to let more and more Ghanaians appreciate and truly value the value of human life, the value of human rights, the value of human dignity. If we have belief in these, and NCC does well expanding confidence in the judicial system in terms of conviction, and the criminal justice system operators, David Asante-Apietu, IGP, Mr., makes it his purpose in life for the duration of his tenure to create, to retool the police to be a decent police institution, and judges commit to doing justice by all manner of persons fairly and honestly. And you and I, as civil society members, I'm speaking as such, I'm a public servant now, but you know, that citizens demand and keep a watchful eye. Take this, what happened here. All Ghanaians are going to watch with respect to Captain Mahama. We're going to watch to ensure that to ensure that there will be justice. And if innocent people have been arrested, we should watch to ensure that they are not jailed to satisfy the public demand for blood justice, or for justice.
They're not treated as red meat.
Exactly.
Thrown on the scale.
So the scapegoats, we must make sure that only the guilty, the perpetrators face the rigors
as determined by
the justice
the legal process. Yes.
But we must make sure that no police officer takes a bribe or does a shoddy job. I've always wondered about police investigation techniques as a professional investigator myself. I wonder how many police officers actually do an investigation plan, conduct investigations, have some credible foundation before effecting arrest. In my practice as a criminal defense attorney, I've come after case after case where I win because, number one, I take only cases that I believe my clients are innocent, but also because the evidence is non-existent or completely thin. There was a sad killing, a death of a DC somewhere up in the Volta region. To date, nobody has been tried or convicted. But so many people were arrested just like fishing expedition. So many of them, I represented 12 out of the 13, all 12 are out on bail because they had absolutely nothing to do with it, but the state wanted to show that it had arrested people, and so innocent people were...
Create the right optics.
I mean, I believe, presumably innocent people were arrested. It's a matter that's still sub judice, so I won't go into that, but I'm saying that we should all keep a vigil and ensure that every point of the criminal justice system works well and works with integrity. That much citizens who are participants can ensure it happens.
Yep.
And of course they would, I'm sure if the police were here, the judiciary, they would say, and they need to be resourced.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just like the NCC.
They need to be trained
Just like the
and so on.
NCC.
And
They must be
well
awakened with resources.
Absolutely.
Resources and
leadership.
And leadership
And
and good
leadership.
capacity. It's important. But this just goes back to what I said. If the system is working, if everybody is doing their part and doing it well, if everybody is doing their job and doing it well, this thing we will see less and less of it, you know, because I am seriously convinced that people know they can get away with it. So they don't think twice. They don't think of consequences. Who's going to do what? There are so many of us. I can say I wasn't here. I can say I was. You can say it was somebody else. And so
maybe the National Identification Authority, if they also hopefully get resourced and delivered identification.
Yes.
Okay, I want to show you that
resources, means of identifying citizens properly. Maybe that will also do a lot to support the judicial and law and order infrastructure. Ken, is your book available in bookstores? This book, Fighting Armed Robbery in Ghana. Let me just point it to the camera, and we'll send you an invoice.
Because you did it on your own free will and accord.
Oh, I forget I'm talking to a lawyer. All right.
Yeah.
Is it available in bookstores?
Well, I don't know. I haven't checked the lab, but it was available
online
at the University of Ghana bookshop. Yes.
Yes. Right. So our IDs.
Our IDs.
Yes.
And
that would help, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has a very important role to play in crime control or in criminal investigations. Absolutely. And at the moment, you know, the card that is there, it's working, but we're going to improve upon it, give people, citizens of this country, smart cards, and foreigners resident in this country, a card that has a chip embedded with a huge capacity, and that will be
and
connected
if I lose my card,
for everything.
Well,
are we going into one card for everything?
That's what we're going. But
okay.
You see, EC, the law says that the Electoral Commission shall issue cards for voting purposes. So we cannot immediately, but SNET, they have databases that, you know, that are useful for their immediate purposes. But the law makes the National Identification Authority card, the Ghana card, the only card that shall be produced in proof of your identity. So wherever identity is required to be established, it is only the Ghana card that must be used. If a police stop you as a driver and they want your driver's license, they're seeking to find out whether you are entitled to operate a vehicle. Right. So that's a different purpose.
But assuming, let's say the police went into this village, made a swoop, arrested people, they've thrown their cards away so that their identity is not determined, will this system be able to determine who they are?
Biometrics, yes.
Biometrics.
Because their biometrics are in the database, even if you don't have
the physical card.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yes.
Right.
And the Vice President has given clear marching orders and a timeline on the instructions of His Excellency the President, September the 15th, that we should roll out, and we are working day and night. And your call and my coming here, the difficulty where I was, people come thinking about how to make this work. And as I leave here, I go back to the base where we are camped, thinking through how to make this work.
And with this, people cannot escape, cannot separate themselves from themselves.
No, you cannot.
You will be found.
You cannot, because everybody's biometrics, your 10 fingerprints, plus your face, your picture, and then your iris, the eye. We will capture all of these things, and that is the standard internationally. And the product that we are going to come out with meets all the international, the ISO specifications. The highest, to the extent possible, we're going to give this country the best identification system that you could dream of, so that it serves the social, economic, and political purposes that are envisaged in the law that established the authority.
Thanks.
I can assure you we will deliver.
And hopefully that will help us preserve our soul.
The preservation of our soul. I don't want to leave the impression that somehow our religious institution is at fault. Our religious institutions have a critical role to play in letting us rediscover and preserve the best components of our soul. Our soul is not a single entity. There are different dimensions, just like the personality of the individual. We must preserve the best of us. We are not a failed nation. We are a nation with an over-exaggerated sense of how good we are. We need to do a reality check and cut an image that corresponds to our conduct. Our conduct so far shows that we are prone to needless violence, that we are impatient as a people, that we have a tendency to be very vengeful and wicked. These are truths about the Ghanaian, and the work of the National Reconciliation Commission. Just grab a copy of the report. The work is copious with evidence of how banal, how wicked that we can be. And the things that happened in 1960, in the 70s and 80s, during military revolutionary eras, apart from those that were perpetrated by soldiers, they continue to happen, those that were perpetrated by ordinary citizens against ordinary citizens. We have not changed whatsoever in terms of our degree of wickedness. We continue. Look at how we treat children. We torture children. The stories are the same. Year after year, we strip women in Ashaman and elsewhere.
In Kumasi, the city center, on campus, in the University of Ghana. And
it's almost the more vulnerable you are, then the more likely you are to attract.
The thing they do to women.
Our demand for severe punishment is also not borne by any empirical chronological evidence. The severity of punishment has very little to do with deterrence, with keeping people away from crime. Your average criminal does not stop to think, Charlie, if I do this crime, I will get 50 years, so I no go do it. That's not how they process it. A lot of crimes that are spontaneous or unplanned and all, even those that are planned, it is not how many years they are thinking of. It is rather whether they will be arrested. Right. So the probability of detection is the single greatest impediment. A single greatest contributor to deterrence. Right. That people will be deterred because they know that if they engage in it, their conduct will be detected and that they will be shamed. That is the key thing. So if we have efficient preventive measures and efficient crime detection capacity, then people will be quickly, like what we are doing in this town, what's the name, Diaso, that people will be arrested, that there will be swift, that is a key thing, celerity, swiftness of arrest and prosecution, and that they will go to jail. It is the humiliation, and people who engage in crimes of this nature and all the others, white-collar criminals, if we can quickly use our public audit system and procurement rules and ensure that those who are committing crimes against you and I and the children who are suffering in schools, if we can have a system that ensures quick or efficient detection and prosecution, we will reduce the spate of these things.
Thanks, Ken, Atefa, Katlinadi.
Well,
and unless you can do it in 15 seconds.
Sure, no worries at all. I think Doctor has said most of what needs to be said. And also to say that it gives me great pleasure that a lot of attention is now coming to the NCC, and it gives me a lot of encouragement that people see things and say the NCC should do something about it, because what that means is that our profile will go up, and hopefully it will be easier to attract the resources that we need to be able to do the work that we need to do. Thank you.
Thanks. And my condolences and that of the team to the family of, in fact, well, the family of Captain Adam Mahama and the woman Kina. And all of the men and women who have died in such horrible circumstances, undeserving of a human being. And I hope that we will learn to behave better than our dogs. Good night.
The Lounge, proudly brought to you by Johnny Walker. Keep walking.